Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. In this one I want to do a relatively brief recap of fully officially confirmed information about Avatar Studios. I am purposefully not trying to be exhaustive with this, but to just try and highlight the major big beats that we have had over the years when it comes to Avatar Studios. Just so people know kind of how long we've been waiting for it, and then what is new, and then what obviously isn't necessarily confirmed. So, of course, we have to go back to February 2021 to start off here. That's when Avatar Studios was announced. Paramount announced it at one of their investors events, and we followed it up with some social media announcements. So, in case you have never seen this before, we actually had some suggestion ahead of time that, oh, Paramount are talking about Avatar. They're going to announce something, aren't they? We didn't expect it to be what it was, but here is the announcement, basically.
Now, we've surveyed which are the most celebrated, the most requested, and which hold the most creative possibilities. And that has led us to produce a string of reimagined series, starting with Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's considered one of the greatest animated series of the last 30 years. Our hero's journey through a universe of myth and fantasy with a dedicated fan base that has supersized since the show's original run on Nick ended in 2008. Now, to satisfy the demand for more chapters of this franchise, we're now establishing Avatar Studios, which will be led by the original creators with the goal to further develop this fantastic universe. Together, we'll produce all new series, short-form content, spin-offs, and theatrical films. It's an all-out expansion of everything Avatar with Paramount Plus at the core. And then there's SpongeBob.
Okay, we don't need to hear about SpongeBob, but you can see they didn't quite have the logo prepared, but then they did for the social media stuff. I guess they recorded that ahead of time. They quickly mocked up the logo. I don't know what the timing on a lot of how quickly Avatar Studios came together. But of course, we got the logo, Avatar Studios. We've had this for ages now. But obviously the main takeaway there was, wow, that's a show of confidence in Avatar. That they're not just doing a new thing, like a follow-up to Korra. They're giving them an entire studio, and the aim at the start is new series, short-form content, spin-offs, and theatrical films. And I think a lot of people forget this kind of mention at the start of these 4 different avenues, types of content. So of course, theatrical film we'll get to. We know about. Series is kind of what we're hoping for them to announce at some point. But the short form content and spin-offs, we don't really know what the extent of that necessarily is. But they obviously had giant plans, of course. And as we get into some of the other information, as this was coming out, again, this is still from February 2021. Entertainment Weekly had the whole initial announcement where we found out the first project is going to be an animated film. So this has always been the case. There's always been a film as the first confirmed project. So this is just a general report about the whole idea, basically what I just showed you in the video, but with the social media kind of updates. EW did get an official statement from Mike and Brian at the start, kind of highlighting how long it's been. And then the general thing that they've said in so many interviews at this point is that there are still many stories and time periods in Aang's world that we are eager to bring to life. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to explore the Avatarverse with Avatar Studios. They can develop it on a vast scale in myriad exciting ways and mediums. So again, highlighting the different formats and the different kind of approaches that they can do to this overall. And that's kind of the whole idea there. Going into sort of deadline, of course, this was an update that happened a little bit afterwards. This was in March, where they did an interview with Brian Robbins, and he mentioned, slight update to what they said, we are in an early stages of developing and exploring what we are calling an entire Avatar Airbender universe. Mike and Brian are hard at work, and I think that the universe will encompass definitely a theatrical film, animation, certainly multiple TV series and multiple films. I think we'll be ready to tell very soon what's happening, but they're still in the early stages of creative development. And I think this is something that people don't understand, I think, about a lot of just general news and then also kind of insider information that was happening over the course of the last couple of years, is the idea that they were in the early stages of development. So reports coming out from around this time, of course, would suggest that they're working on a bit of everything. And so, sure, they might have eventually decided to do something different at a later point, but the reports initially of like, we're doing this, 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 and this, aren't necessarily wrong. It's just that they eventually decided on other stuff to happen down the line. But we'll go on, of course. So again, you can see this idea of not just the films, but the series coming up as well. That's their core kind of aspects. Like, again, the spin-offs and the short form content don't get mentioned that often, but films primarily, but also TV series is a big thing for Paramount. And then again, I've mentioned this one a few times. This is a Paramount official website interview, again with Brian Robbins, who's involved in all of this, of course, mentions that they're well on their way in development of a series of CG films and a new Avatar series. So in case you're kind of missing this, they have mentioned series before. So we're fully expecting an announcement on a series pretty much any day now, once they finally get to actually revealing what they're doing. CG films has of course been slightly altered in terms of like, as the time has gone on, we realized that no, they mean 2D with sort of like the assistance of 3D, which is effectively what modern kind of 2D kind of animation is. Even ATLA had moments of CG during its animation, and Korra of course has it as well. So this is fully expected, and again, this has evolved since this point. There was a point where we were just like, wait, what? They're doing CG films for Avatar? But this got clarified over the months and years to the point where like, okay, it's all 2D now. Great, fantastic. So that's great. And especially because this is a Flying Bark Productions, Flying Bark Animation, they are confirmed to be the animation studio working on the first film, which is this 2025 movie, which I'll get to more information in a second. But just to immediately kind of clarify the whole idea, is they talk about, there was job listings and stuff like that. They're set to push the style and boundaries of hybrid animation. The first Avatar feature film will couple traditional 2D animation with substantial CG elements. And again, we're still going back and forth on how much CG is necessarily going to be involved, but Brian, especially in interviews, has been quite clear, I think, about the whole idea of 2D is what they do for Avatar. It's just that the CG is going to sort of help them, I guess, in the background. It's going to help production for all these multiple projects that they're working on, that whole idea. But interestingly, we don't actually know what the full details are on animation studios, because all that's confirmed is that Flying Bark is doing the first movie. But anyway, we move on. Then we rush ahead to, this is San Diego Comic-Con 2022. Janet Varney was not at attendance at the event, but she did basically send in this video that they played, and this was the major Avatar Studios news that year at Comic-Con. Whoops.
Me, Janet, and I am so sad not to be at San Diego Comic-Con with Dante and with all of you. I've just been doing a little reading while I recuperate, and it reminded me that we actually have some exclusive Avatar Studios news for you all. Now, there have been a lot of rumors floating around, a lot of speculation and a lot of excitement. I feel it too, but we figured it was time to set the record straight. The first feature-length movie from Avatar Studios will be focusing on Avatar, Aang, and his friends. And I, for one, cannot wait. Now, where was I?
Okay, so obviously there you go. That's the whole video there. So a very, very official thing there. The first movie is about Aang and co, and this got confirmed as time went on. Now, in relation to, I suppose, her specifically noting rumors and stuff like that at the time, obviously, like, it's the voice actress for Korra reading the Kyoshi novel at this point, given that, like, it would take the podcast until, like, literally a few weeks ago on the podcast to actually talk about the Kyoshi novel, talking about rumors and finally announcing, like, an Aang movie. It's like, they fully knew what the fandom was kind of talking about, but it's also, like, there's we fully expect at some point, like there's a core project, Kyoshi project, all of this stuff. Like at least they finally like actually announced something, but that's that obviously. Then we move ahead a bit to the movie getting its date. So November 10th, 2022. So this is how long we've known about the whole October 10th, 2025 date. We're approaching like a year and a half, going on to 2 years of knowing about this date. So you can see here, the untitled Avatar: The Last Airbender movie is coming out October 10th, 2025. Nickelodeon Animation, Paramount Animation, Avatar Studios, of course, getting a wide release, and that's really all there is. Since here, there really hasn't been an update on this. It's just we continue to expect it on this date. It's as simple as that. They then confirmed this at some point last year in or around CinemaCon and the whole image leak that, hey, yes, it is October 10th, 2025. So the last like real official mention of the date was, April last year. Which, of course, we're coming up to April this year, another CinemaCon. Who knows if there'll be information at that. It's hard to say because CinemaCon is typically a closed to the public event. And if we get any news, it would be kind of just text reported by people there. Like, I'm not sure that's necessarily the place for them to announce anything. It would require them to make a public announcement at the same time as they're kind of announcing it to people at CinemaCon, is basically that idea there. But of course, we do have to acknowledge that while officially they put out this, we did actually get to see visually what they were shown at the convention. So they showed them an image of this movie. I'll quickly show it here just to highlight it. As you can see here, one of the photographers temporarily put it up. It got taken down. It seems like there's just an acknowledgement that the image is out there, but as you can see, it is the kind of main Team Avatar members. It is Adult Gang. That's what the movie is. That's the only official image, and then because it was kind of quote unquote leaked out, though very officially leaked out, because obviously for someone to be there taking photography, they have to be sort of an official approved photographer to get in there. They obviously just put up the wrong stuff publicly, and it's that sort of a weird situation, but at least that image gives you a sense for what this first movie is actually planned to be. Obviously, to a certain extent, that is probably a early piece of promo art. It maybe isn't absolutely 100% representative of the final product, but it certainly gives you a broad idea about what the movie is actually planned to be. Then we have this is from slightly earlier in 2022, but the idea that in June they did confirm that there are 3 Avatar films in development at Avatar Studios. And this is also where we got the confirmation. Laura Montgomery is going to be the director for the first movie. So again, we don't really know too much information about like staff and production and stuff like that, but like Laura Montgomery, of course, has worked on the shows, so it is a series kind of veteran, of course. And then we don't know anything very official about the other 2 movies, except that they're obviously doing multiple movies. This has obviously been a bit of a weird one because there really hasn't been that much official mention of the series, really, except the bits that I've mentioned from like 2021. Since then, it's been very light on that sort of stuff, and we don't really know kind of much else. So let's kind of move on here. So again, just to highlight this, because this is effectively Mike O'Brien's most recent comment about things, again, just highlighting what's happening at Avatar Studios.
To make, and now we're trying to make a bunch of stuff all at once, so it's compounding that.
Yeah, so the idea, they're trying to make a bunch of stuff all at once. So for just in case you're wondering, they are working on multiple Avatar Studios animated projects at the same time. It's not just that first movie for October 2025 that's in production. There's other stuff. Obviously, development versus production. I get the impression that like they are actively working in production on multiple projects. Now, this is highly likely to be the first series as well as the first movie. They're probably have in the background maybe started on the second movie as well. It depends on what their release schedule actually is. And then if we're trying to really bring that stuff into play, we're suddenly very much talking about speculation on the rumors and that whole side of things. And then the last kind of major thing I want to talk about is this podcast interview that Mike and Brian did. It is not the Braving the Elements podcast, and because of that, we actually get Mike and Brian talking quite openly about Avatar Studios. I would say that this is definitely the best Mike and Brian interview about Avatar Studios. So I'll link this one below, and I would definitely recommend if you want to kind of catch up, I think, on a lot of Avatar Studios stuff, I would definitely recommend checking this out. In general, there's some pretty nice stuff because they have like Jeremy Zuckerman on at the start as well. But the main section with Mike and Brian is really interesting, where they actually reveal quite a bit of information about a variety of different things. I forget which clip I have ready to go here, but let's just see what I
think the thing we're not doing right now, not to say this couldn't happen someday, is like, we're not adapting the graphic novels into a TV show, and we're not adapting the YA novels into a movie or a TV show. Again, that could happen in the future, but
we are like feeding off.
Yeah, totally.
You know, they're and just to be clear, like Mike has always been way more involved in the publishing side of stuff than I have.
So that's just one of the things that is said here in terms of like a lot of people ask, are they going to adapt the comics and stuff like that? Their initial plans are no. You'll note that they didn't fully close the door on it, but I'm guessing they have enough new ideas that they don't feel they need to do the adaptations of stuff that's already basically been told. Because they put the time into making the comics and the novels, why would we do that again? And that does make a lot of sense. There's quite a few little details like that across this in terms of like they're going with the idea that the comics and novels are canon. They will adjust things if they feel they absolutely need to, but they very much view that stuff as mostly being kind of like locked in, and they will really only change stuff if they absolutely have to. I saw that kind of quite badly reported when this interview first came out, that the report was like, Mike and Brian plan to retcon the comics, and it's like, if they feel they absolutely have to, yes, otherwise the report is actually that like the comics are canon. It's just like some of the really bad like interpretation of what was actually said in there. But there's some nice stuff there, and if you do listen to a lot of the interviews, the Braving the Elements interviews as well as this one, they do talk about just the broad scope of this, of like trying to hit all these different things in their projects, different timelines, tones, in a way almost hit different audiences as well. So some of those rumors that have come out about like preschool show, like a show for like younger kids, makes a lot of sense if Paramount are really trying to push Avatar as a big brand, that they want to appeal to a wide audience and have something that will bring the kids in to get them into the other stuff and get them into like the new stuff as well. So a lot of quite interesting stuff if you kind of actively go through that. But it does highlight that for the most part, like especially I would say like the last year and a half, things have been exceptionally light on information, especially because like Avatar News has not been putting out any kind of rumors. There's not even been any rumors necessarily about stuff coming out. What's happening kind of currently with Avatar Studios seems to be that because Netflix Avatar has happened, they've been confirmed for more seasons, it's done well enough that it's brought a lot of people back into the fandom. It's created a lot of new fans. People are talking about Avatar. It feels like we're now building up to Avatar Studios have to say something. Of course, the Avatar Studios website is up, but notably, there's no information on it about anything. In the code, of course, they have the release date for the movie, but it's not live on the website. Otherwise, the website doesn't make it clear that there's new content coming out. But that website is there ready to be updated the second they actually do announce something. And that feels like it does have to happen soon because, of course, we're still in a situation where about a year and a half out, we have no title for the first movie. We have no, like, officially released image for the movie. and that's not leaked and has like logos all over it or clearly doesn't look right. So that needs to be resolved. Like, clarify the information on the first project, but then notably announce the first series as well, because Paramount is all about Paramount Plus. So yeah, it's cool that you're doing a movie to launch things and that will go onto the streaming platform, but you also will want stuff that is just exclusive to the streaming platform, and that is going to be your series. So they need to announce that series sooner rather than later. And some of the marketing stuff on recent books and publishing has been teasing this idea of kind of some of the earlier stuff of, like, you know, them talking about there being all of these different projects and multiple series and stuff like this. You're kind of beginning to see some of that terminology begin to pop up again in kind of like half official material, marketing material on books. And then combined with the fact that they seem to have some sort of a marketing campaign planned for the middle of the year. And they're going to probably start to get Avatar merchandise in terms of toys going later on. We're getting an Avatar mobile game where we're going to learn more about in the next couple of weeks. And, you know, Avatar in Concert has happened, and it's going to be heavily expanding going into the next year. You can see the idea of things are going up for Avatar. The only thing we're waiting for is more official information on Avatar Studios. The only thing that we don't know is that. And I think at this point it is hurting them a little bit that the information is not very clear about this, in that no one really knows anything super official about Avatar Studios. So there's a real need to at some point confirm what's happening. And for me, again, it is confirm those first two projects. That's what you need to do. I think if they can actually hit this theoretical plan of October 2025 movie, and then potentially before the end of the year get the show out, or even very early 2026 get the show out, that's fantastic. They've delivered in that case. The thing they obviously want to avoid in terms of trying to build a franchise is have the first two projects be an eternity apart. They do have to come back sort of strong to highlight that Avatar is back. And that's why there's the need for all of this stuff in terms of like all these different avenues of content. And of course, 3 out of the 4, they haven't really talked about like ever. But this idea that they're working on multiple things, and that means more than 2, should be in your mind in terms of, yes, there's going to be a lot. And again, like Mike and Brian have said in the podcast, it's going to take a long time for this stuff to come out, but when it comes out, there's going to be a lot of stuff. They've said that. And the only way for that to make sense is for the projects, once they start coming out, to not be very far apart. The final thing I'll bring up is, of course, there were layoffs at Avatar Studios. Now, you will note, of course, that there's been layoffs across the gaming industry, the entertainment industry, and it's felt like it's been nearly non-stop for the last kind of year and a bit. Avatar Studios has had some layoffs. We don't really know the full extent of these, but this podcast, from everything I think we've found out, this was recorded after the layoffs. I think it was very shortly after them, but it definitely was after them. I think based on they answer some fan questions, and I think based on when they were submitted and stuff like that, it is afterwards. So that helps to clarify some things in terms of like, well, he still said multiple projects, and this was after layoffs. So that's important to note, obviously. But yeah, that's effectively where we stand. Obviously, it does feel like a lot of other scattered, much smaller pieces of information out there about Avatar Studios, but most of it is, in the grand scheme of things, like relatively small. I'll address some of the Avatar news rumors now, just because I think it is important to bring them up. So, probably the big one that he kind of settled on towards the end was this idea that if the ultimate plan for Paramount and Avatar Studios comes together, they do have some sort of a big, broad strategy to try and hit 6 projects in 3 years. So 2025, 2026, 2027. The rumored plans are that there would be a movie and a TV series every year for 3 years, with, of course, the Aang movie here being the first project. The first series would be the new Avatar series about the Earth Avatar after Korra. And I think the only other thing that he felt like he was able to sort of quote unquote confirm was that potentially the second movie was another ATLA movie, but this time a Zuko focused one, because the suggestions are that the first movie is going to be more Aang and Katara are the main characters, though the rest of the gang are also included, whereas this would probably switch that to Zuko is the main character for that one, and it would allow you to focus on like his family, I guess, a little bit, if that maybe is part of the plan. Again, other than the rumor being Zuko movie, there was no story suggestions necessarily. And then there's been obviously scattered rumors about like a preschool sort of series being included in there at one point. The idea that multiple seasons, of course, for the Earth Avatar show would be included across that kind of 3-year plan, and that potentially it would all lead up to a movie to sort of finish off the story of the Avatar after Korra. Which that's the sort of thing that we're, I suppose, trying to build up towards, where like it's going to be expansion material for like Avatar and Korra, but then if they do a new Avatar, they have the opportunity to properly plan out a way to deliver like all of the content for that Avatar. But again, that is all rumors, which is why the potential news that came out like last week that on the Roku book listings, it said there was a new series coming out in 2025 about a brand new Avatar. A lot of people immediately connected it to the whole Earth Avatar after Korra situation, even though the information on that listing, what the news was, didn't actually say that. It just said new Avatar. And that could mean, of course, a past Avatar between Wan and that group of Avatars we don't know a lot about, of like Avatar Zito, Avatar Gun, Avatar Salai, the little gaps in between those three, and then the giant gap all the way back to Avatar Wan. It could be a past Avatar in there also. Not to mention the idea of, I think people would like to see something with Kyoshi, people would like to see stuff with Yang Chen. There's a lot of room to do stuff with. Korra is going to need a project at some point, but the plan, again, going back to this stuff, is multiple TV series, multiple films, and then keep in mind short form content. Keep in mind spin-offs as well. I don't know what an Avatar spin-off necessarily is going to be. First show maybe with a main character who's not an Avatar, you know, that sort of thing is kind of what we're talking about here. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Is there any other kind of big officially confirmed Avatar Studios news that you feel probably needs to be noted here as part of this video in the comments? Otherwise, just let me know what your thoughts are. Like, when do you think Avatar Studios are going to say something? Will it be CinemaCon next month? Is it finally going to be they'll actually do something at the cons this year? So SDCC in July, NYCC in October. I think for me, the October New York Comic Con this year, that's the big sort of like deadline situation for me, of like, if they don't say anything by October, it kind of feels like we're in a little bit of trouble, where there's 1 year to go until the movie, and if you're still not willing to talk about it, what's going on? But I do feel stuff is building towards some sort of an announcement over the next couple of months. It just feels like it has to happen, otherwise people are just going to lose interest in this, because it's going to take a while for like Netflix Avatar to build up to like production and stuff like that and get going on that side of things. The attention does turn to Avatar Studios, of like, it's your turn to hype up the franchise now. But let me know your comments below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.